YouTubians, Curt here again. So it's been about a week since my last post. So I was going through work emails today. One of my fellow teachers, we all like to put little phrases on the bottom of mine. Me, I just put my name and phone number. But you know, it's kind of cool to have on the bottom of an email some kind of phrase, catchphrase, something popular that's inspirational. It's always nice to pass along something inspirational to those whom you are working with, dealing with, friends with, family with, without being overbearing, and sometimes an inspirational sentence is enough. And so her phrase, which is an oldie but a goodie, is, what would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail? First time I heard that, I was like, that's brilliant, because man, I'd do anything. I'd climb Everest. I'd fly every model of airplane ever built. I would rappel into the deepest caves and cave dive to the deepest depths and dive to the deepest depths of the oceans. Whatever. It'd be the world's greatest stuntman, you know, whatever. But I came to realize that my teaching style goes against that exactly. I set up my students for higher expectations than normal, which exasperates them. And my grandfather used to do that to me. It used to bug the heck out of me. I felt like his expectations were so grand. But he taught me lots of things. He taught me to ride motorcycles. He taught me to sail a sailboat. He bought me my own sailboat when I was a kid. And it was a cheap little sailboat, literally made of foam. But it was a real sailboat, man. Centerboard, sheet, you know, everything. And he taught me to sail. He taught me to shoot. He taught me to fix things. This guy could fix anything. And I learned those things from him. And he used to infuriate me because he would never, ever give me the answer. Oh, Grandpa, how many screws is it going to take to screw that together? Or, I don't know, figure it out. And I thought he was just being obstinate to piss me off. And he wasn't. He was making me think for myself. And it drove me nuts because, and he would tell me, you need to learn to think for yourself. Don't be a sheep, he would tell me. You know, and when you're a kid or a young teenager, you don't get it. Your eyes aren't open enough to see the world around you that a lot of people are like sheep. You know, look at traffic now. It's so congested that, and you have to follow along in society on many, many things. You can't be a rebel and drive the wrong way down the road. You're going to kill somebody. You know, you're going to hurt innocent people, hurt yourself. So Karen, one of my teachers, put in her email, what would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail? And that goes against my grain. Things are boring. If you knew you couldn't fail, then, okay, I'll go jump off the roof. I'll go jump off the highest high dive and do 4 flips in the air with a twist, with 2 twists, with 4 twists. What would it matter? Because you could do it. And I found that in my robotics course, I have some spectacular students that are spectacular, I mean, they're smart, don't get me wrong, but they've been doing it more than the other students, okay? And one analogy I like to use with everybody because they seem to understand it is chess. I am not a particularly good chess player. I'm an impatient person, so I don't think out my problems. I can't think 20 steps ahead in many different positions of what my opponent might do. But when you tell somebody, especially when you're trying to teach kids not to cheat, is how awesome of a chess player would I be if I played the average first grader? Well, I'd be great. I'd win every time. Unless, you know, I'm against that 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 that there are in the world that are true brainiac geniuses and would whip me up at chess from first grade on or whatever. But the average person, you know, first grader, if I played him chess, I would definitely win. But is that a true game? Is that a match of wits and skill and tactics? No, it's an unfair advantage. And so with my students, I don't give them unfair advantages, but some, I would say, have as much experience in, for example, robotics, using the NXT robotics system, that it appears unfair. I was watching a YouTube video of a Harvard lecture on computers just a few days ago. I love watching. Go and check all these big Ivy League schools. They have YouTube lectures, so you can see what it's like. And the guy says, look, this is a beginning computer programming class. If you're one of these people that already knows how to do computer programming, please do not take my class. Don't take this for the easy A, because it makes everybody else feel bad. So in robotics, I have learned this year, first of all, I have some repeat students that had robotics with me last year. So I got another book, more skills, more challenges, but they got it done. While some other students are like, I can't build this. I mean, they're looking exactly at a picture of step by step what they're supposed to build, and they're so not used to using those parts that they were having difficulties. And they've finally caught up to a point where I feel satisfactory that they can build well enough. And that's what I look for. I'm not looking for perfection. As I tell my students, not everybody in here has to be a NASA engineer. Not everybody in here has to be an engineer. Not everybody in here has to be a computer programmer. Okay? Just give it a good try. And so here I have some students that are awesome. Jack, you know who you are. Jack E. Mr. Jack. That's not even your real name. You know who I'm talking to. You're great. You don't need my help. You could build circles around anybody. And I was disappointed in my students, and I told them so. Last week I said, you guys have disappointed me because I have let you down by not challenging you. And it was the truth. They had mastered what I was teaching them. And we are far from the end of the year. So I'm not going to put my feet up and just sit there and watch them build the same old things and do the same old things. So I said, I haven't been challenging you, and that's my fault as a teacher. I need to challenge you better. I'm a challenging guy anyway, and I always try to give my students a little extra. I expect more from them. And I think it was Mrs. Roosevelt, the president's wife, I think it was her that said, kids never fail to exceed your expectations. And it's true. And they may do it in a way that you don't expect, and so it kind of irks you as a parent or as a teacher. You always got that smart aleck kid who knows more than the others in a certain area because they do it or whatever. And they want to show off and show their smarts. They want your approval. They want accolades for it. Totally cool with that. I let them challenge me. I let them question me. That's my style. So here's what I did in robotics. And tomorrow is day 1. We are starting with this. These are over 100 pieces of balsa wood. 2 different types, some shorter than others, and I just have them tied together because I went and picked them up on my motorcycle. So I had to be the geek and have stuff tied to my motorcycle while I'm driving through town, but I don't care. I got a cool motorcycle, so whatever. We are learning aeronautical engineering. Anybody involved in robotics must know how to build, must know how to make. That's probably the largest part of a problem. You can control robots through many means. Let a computer control it. You can remotely control it. you know, you can have built-in artificial intelligence control it. So I say that comes secondary. I think the robot build comes first. If I make the world's greatest, spectacular, most awesomest underwater robot and send it to Mars, it is useless. It is built for the wrong thing. If I take the world's greatest built Mars rover and throw it in the ocean, it is useless as well. So I'm now teaching the engineering concepts. And what better place to start than with what is called a penny plane? Yes, you heard it right, penny plane. Look it up. I don't need to Google it for you. You can do it yourself. So my kids are getting balsa wood. It's easily cut, easily broken, on purpose. They could use stronger wood. I could buy stronger wood. But they need to have the chance for failure. They need to be able to work with the subtleties of what they have to work with. We can't always build everything out of stainless steel. We may be sending it to the moon, where currently on SpaceX it costs like, you know, $100,000 per pound of payload once you factor in all the costs. So building something out of stainless steel compared to aircraft grade aluminum, huge bucks. The next thing they're going to get, hot glue gun. I can't have these guys holding pieces of wood for 20 minutes waiting for it to dry. Hot glue gun should work fine. And actually this is a low temp hot glue gun. And razor blades. These are good old square razor blades. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them to the grinder. And I'm going to grind them so that only about that much of the blade, so about a third of the blade, is sharp. And then I'm going to wrap some tape around the dull side of the blade to remind them where to pick it up at. That way the cutting surface will be very small. No chances of stabbing, slashing, gashing somebody. It's the safest way I can think of doing it. The blade will even be shorter than X-Acto knives, which they already use in their art classes. The skin, thanks to Walmart, will be bags. This stuff is really strong. Like I told you, this was held on a motorcycle going 80 miles an hour with bags. You know, $70 worth of balsa wood held on with plastic bags. Worked beautifully. So, those are the things that I'm getting. And the idea is they have to design a airplane that was first designed to weigh the same weight as a penny. But it used skins that are very thin, that you blow like that and the skin would tear. So they're using more stout materials. I gave them some plans for penny robots, or penny airplanes, and now they have to design a larger one, a scaled up model that will handle the extra weight, and that they can, we have a mezzanine at one of my campuses, and we're going to throw the airplane or glide the airplane off of the top, and the winner is the plane that is either airborne the longest or flies the farthest. We'll have to see how that goes. I made one. I spent Christmas break, part of my Christmas break, making one. Trimmed it up by taping some Legos to the front. First tried the propeller with the rubber band thing. A little too difficult right now. I flew it. It glides great. Took it to school. Everybody flew it. I gave everybody a chance to fly it. After, 10 crashes at least, it broke. I stuck it back together with tape and flew it again, literally Scotch tape. And now so they could all see it fly. Teach by example. They all saw me do it. Now they get to do it. I encouraged them to try whatever they want. A single wing, double wing, biplane, triple wing, triplane, inverted delta wing, forward-facing X-wing, like the X-29 that NASA produced in the 70s. Whatever they want. But I give them a lecture on aerodynamics and aeronautical engineering, just one class worth, explained why they might want to try certain things over others, and made them draw up their design on a piece of paper. Doesn't have to be fancy. Lines don't have to be straight, but they needed to have measurements and a basic design. We don't have time to warp, to soak this balsa wood and warp it and let it sit for hours with a clamp on it and tape and then cut it and so to make the edges of the wings round. You can make octagonal edges of the wings if you want, but they all had to show me their drawings. They do not have to follow the drawings. If they start doing it and they go, this isn't going to work, that's kind of the purpose of invention. It's kind of the purpose of engineering, is learning to recognize the problems before they are big problems. And, let's say you're rebuilding a car and you decide you're going to put, a Chevy big block inside of a Ford Ranger, and you buy the motor, but you haven't rebuilt it yet. And then you're talking around, you're going online, and you find out, this engine is not going to work at all. There's just no room for it. I would have to just mangle the front end of this truck and expand it for this to fit, and it just won't fit feasibly. You can get anything to fit, but it'll just look like garbage when you're done. So it would be wise, before you rebuild that engine and before you break out the welding torch and start cutting holes in the truck, to say, hey, this isn't feasible or economical at this point. Let's go a different route. And that is my goal with my students, is they need the challenge of potential failure. I'm hoping that several of them, and Caleb, you're one of them, some are very mechanically inclined. And so some, I think, will build successfully the first time. Be a little bit of weight and trim problems at first, and we'll work it out. And some are going to build stuff that are going to nosedive to the ground. And I honestly tell my students, I'm going to be excited to see both. I'm going to be hugely excited to see somebody's glider take flight and fly across the whole atrium of the school to glory, and the other ones to crash and burn and bust into pieces on the ground. Both are going to be just as entertaining for me, as you know by watching NASCAR and worldwide wrestling or whatever. The crashes are sometimes more fun than the wins. I told them, don't feel bad if you crash and burn. It's going to be entertainment, and you're still going to learn. Crashing and burning is part of life. So it's not, what would you do if you knew you could never fail? It's, what are you going to try in spite of the fact that Mr. Marler will almost guarantee you to fail? We have time to build more planes. There's no shortage of balsa wood. I am going to teach my students to think, to try to solve problems on something they know nothing about, and to try to succeed in the face of failure over and over and over again. And some students are going to get mad, and some students are going to feel that it's not fair, but I'm going to understand them because I've been there, and their fellow students are going to pep them up because they do. They support each other immensely. So tomorrow, my friends, is the first day of designing and building their own airplanes in a robotics class. And as usual, keep them happy.